Family, I want you to hear me clearly today. January 6th is not a day to rush through, not a day to wake up and say, it's just another day. No, this is a day that requires alertness, a day that demands awareness, a day where moving on autopilot can cost you more than you realize, because some days are ordinary and some days carry weight. This is one of those days. Too many people wake up every morning doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, speaking the same words, never stopping to ask, Lord, what are you doing right now? We get comfortable in routine. We get used to patterns. We assume tomorrow will look like yesterday. But I've learned something in life and in faith. The most dangerous place you can be is spiritually asleep. While everything around you is shifting, there are moments when heaven is calling for attention, not panic, not fear, but attention. Moments when God is saying, stay awake, pay attention, don't move carelessly. January 6th represents one of those moments, not because of hype, not because of rumors, but because of alignment, because there are times when spiritual atmosphere shift, and if you're not discerning, you'll miss what God is trying to show you. Being alert doesn't mean being afraid. Let me say that again. Being alert does not mean being afraid. Fear makes you react. Alertness helps you respond. Fear clouds your vision. Alertness sharpens it. Fear makes noise. Alertness brings clarity. And clarity is what we need right now. Some people think spirituality is just prayer and worship, but true spiritual alertness shows up in how you think, how you speak, how you decide. It's when you pause before reacting. It's when you pray before you pause. It's when you listen before you move. It's when you ask God, what are you saying? Instead of assuming you already know. This is not the day to drift. This is not the day to be careless with your words, your choices, your emotions. Because what you do in moments of significance can echo far beyond the moment itself. Some of you can look back on your life and identify one single day that changed everything. At the time, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt normal. But you made one decision without discernment. One choice without prayer, one move without wisdom, and it shifted your entire direction. That's why I'm saying, stay awake. When you're spiritually alert, you notice things other people ignore. You sense when something isn't right. You feel when a door is closing or when a warning is being whispered. God often speaks softly, and only those who are paying attention hear Him. Noise drowns out instruction. Distraction silences direction. We live in a world full of noise. Opinions everywhere, predictions everywhere, fear everywhere. But wisdom doesn't shout. Wisdom speaks clearly to those who are still enough to listen. January 6 calls for stillness on the inside, even if everything outside feels loud. Being alert also means guarding your heart. Not everything deserves access to your spirit. Not every conversation needs your agreement. Not every message needs your reaction. When you're alert, you filter what you allow in. You protect your peace. You choose discernment over drama. Some people lose spiritual ground, not because of a big sin, but because of small neglect. They stopped watching, they stopped praying, they stopped checking their motives, they stopped asking God before moving. And slowly, without realizing it, they drifted. Alertness keeps you anchored. I want you to understand something important. God does not want to scare, He wants to prepare. Preparation is an act of love. A loving father tells his children, watch your step. A loving shepherd keeps the flock alert. So when we talk about readiness, we're not talking about fear. We're talking about wisdom. If you are alert, you won't be easily manipulated. If you are alert, you won't be swept away by every voice. If you are alert, you won't confuse urgency with importance. You'll know when to move and when to wait. You'll know when to speak and when to stay silent. Some of you need to hear this personally. Slow down today. Breathe, pray, ask God for clarity. Don't rush decisions. Don't assume motives. Don't let emotions drive the wheel. An alert spirit leads to steady steps. And let me say this clearly, being spiritually alert doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means engaging the world with wisdom. It means standing firm without becoming harsh. It means staying grounded while everything around you feels unstable. There are days when God does a lot, and there are days when God watches what you do. Days when heaven observes how you respond, how you choose, how you trust. January 6th is a day to be watched by heaven and by history. So don't treat it like any other day. Wake up with intention, speak with purpose, walk with discernment, keep your eyes open and your heart anchored, because this is not a day for autopilot, it's a day for awareness. Now, let me take you deeper, because this connects directly to why I said this day will not be normal. Some of the most important moments in your life do not announce themselves. They don't come with thunder, fireworks, or warning label that says, pay attention, this will change everything. Most season-shifting moments arrive quietly. They look ordinary, they feel familiar, and that's exactly why so many people miss them. We have this idea that if something is significant, it has to feel dramatic. We think if God is moving, we'll feel chills, hear trumpets, or see instant results. But more often than not, God changes direction while everything looks the same on the surface. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you go about your day, and yet something eternal is unfolding underneath the routine. Think about it. How many defining moments in Scripture started small? A conversation, a step of obedience, a decision made in private, a choice no one applauded. By the time people realized what had happened, the season had already shifted. That's why I'm telling you, don't underestimate this day just because it doesn't look extraordinary. We are living in a time where people will respect what is loud. If it's trending, they believe it. If it's viral, they follow it. If it's emotional, they call it powerful. But the kingdom of God doesn't always move loudly. Sometimes it moves quietly, steadily, deliberately, and those who are impatient often miss what the patient are positioned to receive. There are days when God is not trying to impress you, He's trying to align you. Alignment rarely feels dramatic. Alignment feels subtle. It feels like an inner nudge, a check in your spirit, a pause where you thought you would rush, a hesitation where you once would have jumped. And if you're not spiritually alert, you'll brush it off and say, it's nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was direction. January 6th may feel like just another day to many people. They'll scroll, argue, assume, react, repeat the same patterns. But to those who are paying attention, it carries the weight of a transition. And here's the truth we don't like to admit. Transitions often begin before we understand them. That's why discernment is more important than emotion right now. Emotion reacts to what it sees. Discernment senses what is coming. Emotion asks, how do I feel? Discernment asks, what is being formed? And those are very different questions. Some of you are waiting for a big sign, while God is waiting for you to recognize the small ones. A warning ignored today becomes regret tomorrow. A whisper ignored today becomes a shout later. God would rather guide you quietly than correct you loudly. And let me say this carefully, because it matters. Not every shift is about the world. Some shifts are personal, some shifts are internal, some shifts are about your character, your priorities, your obedience, your discipline. God can change a season without changing your location. He can move you forward while you're standing in the same place. That's why some of you feel unsettled but can't explain why. Nothing obvious is wrong, but something feels different. That's not confusion, that's transition. And transition requires humility. It requires listening. It requires patience. When seasons shift quietly, your response matters more than your reaction. Reaction is fast. Response is thoughtful. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. And quiet shifts reveal who has learned to respond instead of react. Let me be honest with you. Some people will only realize the importance of this moment after it passes. They look back and say something changed there. But wisdom doesn't live in hindsight. Wisdom lives in awareness. Don't be fooled by normal appearances. Just because the sky looks the same doesn't mean the season is. Just because the routine hasn't changed doesn't mean direction hasn't. God can be doing a new thing while everything looks familiar. And here's the danger. When moments don't look important, people treat them casually. They speak carelessly. They choose laziness over prayer. They let emotions lead instead of wisdom. And later, they wonder how they ended up where they are. This is not the time to be casual with your faith. Not the time to be casual with your words. Not the time to be casual with your decisions. Quiet moments demand serious discernment. I've learned that God often tests readiness in ordinary moments. He watches how you handle what feels small before He trusts you with what is big. He watches how you listen when the voice is soft before He speaks louder. He watches how you move when there's no spotlight. And let me tell you something else. Some people miss season shifts because they are too attached to comfort. Quiet transitions often require internal change before external change, and not everyone is willing to let go of old thinking or habits or reactions. But those who are willing to adjust quietly will be positioned publicly. That's why I'm asking you not to rush past it. Stay, sit with it. Pray through it. Ask God what He's adjusting in you. Ask Him what He's preparing you for. Because preparation often begins before opportunity shows up. Some of the most powerful moves of God start with restraint, not action. with silence, not noise, with obedience, not explanation. So don't say nothing happened just because nothing exploded. Some things are being set in motion that will only make sense later. And when they do, you'll be grateful you didn't dismiss this moment. Because when seasons shift quietly, only the discerning recognize that everything has changed. And now let me speak to something that makes many people uncomfortable. But it's necessary if we're going to move forward with wisdom. Moments like this don't just reveal what's happening around us, they reveal what's happening inside us. Pressure has a way of uncovering what preparation hides. When life gets tight, when uncertainty increases, when the moment feels heavier than usual, whatever is truly inside a person eventually comes out. We all say we're ready. We all say we have faith. We all say we trust God. But pressure is the examiner. Pressure doesn't care about what you say on a calm day. It exposes what you believe on a difficult one. And that's why unusual days matter. They don't create character, they reveal it. You don't discover what's in you when everything is easy. You discover it when you're challenged, when you're confused, when you're forced to decide without full information. That's when preparation, or the lack of it, shows itself clearly. Some people think preparation is about having answers. It's not. Preparation is about having foundations. When pressure hits, you don't rise to the level of your hopes. You fall to the level of your training, your habits, your disciplines, your convictions. That's why this moment matters. It's a mirror. Under pressure, some people become reactive. They speak before they pray. They choose sides before seeking wisdom. They follow emotions instead of truth, and then they wonder why they feel unstable. It's not because the moment is strong, it's because the foundation is weak. But there are others, quiet, grounded, steady, who seem unshaken. Not because they're special, but because they've prepared privately. They spend time with God when no one was watching. They've learned to control their words, their reactions, their thoughts. And when pressure comes, they don't panic. They stand. Let me say this plainly. If pressure is breaking you, it's not the pressure's fault. It's pointing to what needs strength. Learning. Pressure is a teacher if you're humble enough to learn from it. Some of you are frustrated right now because this moment is exposing areas you thought were solid. You thought your faith was stronger. You thought your patience was deeper. You thought your trust was unshakable. And now you're realizing there are cracks. But hear me, this is not condemnation. This is invitation. An invitation to grow, to build, to prepare better. God allows pressure not to destroy you, but to develop you. He reveals before He requires. He exposes before He entrusts, because what is preparing you for demands stability. Pressure also reveals where you've been drawing your strength from. If your peace collapses when circumstances change, then your peace was tied to circumstances. If your confidence disappears when opinions turn against you, then your confidence was tied to approval. If your faith wavers when uncertainty rises, then your faith may have been more comfortable and rooted. And that's not something to be ashamed of, but it is something to correct. Preparation is not built in crisis, it's revealed in crisis. That's why you can't wait for pressure to start praying. You can't wait for confusion to start listening. You can't wait for difficulty to start building discipline. The work that holds you steady today was done yesterday. Readiness. Because days like this are not just about what happens. They're about how you handle what happens. 2. People can face the same pressure and respond completely differently. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. One panics, the other prays. One reacts, the other responds. The difference isn't the moment, it's the preparation. Some of you are discovering that you've been strong in public but shallow in private. You've learned the language of faith, but not the lifestyle of it. And pressure is now pulling back the curtain. Again, this is not to shame you, it's to wake you up. God is more interested in your stability than your image. He would rather you be solid than impressive. Because what's coming next requires endurance, not excitement. And here's the mercy in all of this. Exposure is grace when it happens before collapse. It's better to see the weakness now than for it to fail you later. God is kind enough to reveal the cracks while there's still time to reinforce the foundation. This moment is asking you an honest question. What have you really been building? Not what you talk about. Not what you post. What you practice. What you feed. What you prioritize. Because that's what will carry you when pressure rises. If you've been neglecting prayer, pressure will show it. If you've been feeding fear, pressure will amplify it. If you've been avoiding discipline, pressure will expose the cause. But if you've been cultivating faith, humility, and obedience, pressure will bring those qualities forward. So don't run from this moment. Let it examine you. Let it refine you. Let it strengthen you. Adjust where you need to adjust. Build where you need to build. Tighten what's been loose. Because the goal isn't to avoid pressure, it's to be prepared for it. And hear this clearly, the people who stand strong tomorrow are the ones who take preparation seriously today. Pressure doesn't change who you are, it proves it. Now let me speak to something that is trying very hard to dominate this moment, because if you don't recognize it, it will quietly take control of your decisions. Fear is loud, fear is aggressive, fear rushes, fear demands immediate reactions. But wisdom is very different. Wisdom is calm, wisdom is steady, wisdom doesn't compete for attention. It waits for those who are willing to listen. In moments like this, fear will always try to be the first voice you hear. It will come through headlines, conversations, social media, opinions, and speculation. Fear multiplies through repetition. The more you hear it, the more normal it sounds. And before you realize it, fear starts feeling like wisdom. But just because something is repeated doesn't mean it's true. And just because something is loud doesn't mean it's right. Fear wants you to react quickly. Wisdom asks you to pause. Fear says do something now. Wisdom says think, pray, and discern. Fear pushes you to choose sides. Wisdom invites you to seek truth. Fear narrows your vision until all you can see is danger. Wisdom widens your perspective so you can see direction. One of the greatest dangers of fear is that it convinces you that urgency equals importance. Everything suddenly feels critical. Everything feels like a crisis. And when everything feels urgent, people stop thinking clearly. They stop listening. They stop seeking God. They start reacting out of emotion instead of responding out of conviction. This is why I keep saying, stay alert, but stay calm. Fear feeds on uncertainty. And yes, there is uncertainty in moments like this, but uncertainty is not an invitation to panic, it's an invitation to trust. Trust doesn't mean ignoring reality, it means anchoring yourself deeper than what you can see. When fear is in control, people say things they later regret, they damage relationships, they compromise integrity, they move in ways that don't reflect who they truly are. Fear makes temporary emotions feel permanent. Wisdom reminds you that moments pass, but consequences remain. Let me tell you something important. Fear will never lead you closer to truth. It may feel convincing, but it always distorts. Fear exaggerates threats and minimizes God. Wisdom does the opposite. It magnifies God and puts challenges in proper perspective. And here's the subtle danger. Fear doesn't always show up as panic. Sometimes it shows up as sarcasm, anger, defensiveness, or constant arguing. Sometimes it disguises itself as being informed or passionate. But if it robs you of peace, clarity, and self-control, it's not wisdom. Wisdom has a certain sound to it. It's clear, not chaotic. It's firm, not frantic. It doesn't rush you into decisions you haven't prayed about. Wisdom gives you space to breathe, to reflect, to seek counsel. This is why the quiet voice matters so much right now, because fear shouts over wisdom. And if you don't intentionally lower the noise, you miss the clarity that God is offering. Some of you need to disconnect from certain voices, not because you don't care, but because you care about your spiritual health. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every debate deserves your energy. Not every prediction deserves your agreement. Guarding your mind is not weakness, it's maturity. Wisdom also understands timing. Fear acts too early or too late. Wisdom moves at the right time. Fear says, speak now or you'll lose control. Wisdom says, silence at the right moment is strength. Fear says, react before you're left behind. Wisdom says, wait until you're sure. And let me say this, wisdom does not mean passivity. It means purposeful action. It means when you move, you know why you're moving. When you speak, you know why you're speaking. When you stand, you know what you're standing on. Fear wants to drive. Wisdom wants to guide. There are people listening to me right now who are exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're carrying too much fear. Worry drains energy. Anxiety clouds judgment. Constant alertness without peace leads to burnout. That's not how God designed you to live. God's guidance does not come wrapped in panic. His direction may challenge you, but it will never confuse you. His wisdom may stretch you, but it will steady you. So when fear starts knocking, ask yourself a simple question. Is this bringing clarity or chaos? Is this leading me closer to God or pushing me into reaction? Is this producing peace or pressure? Those questions will help you recognize the difference between fear and wisdom. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to predict outcomes. You don't need to have control. What you need is discernment, and discernment grows in stillness, not noise. This moment requires clear minds, steady hearts, and anchored faith. Not people driven by fear, but people led by wisdom. Not people reacting emotionally, but people responding intentionally. So lower the volume of fear, raise the voice of wisdom, and let clarity lead your steps, because fear shouts, but wisdom always knows where to lead. And now let me bring this closer to where it really lands, because moments like these are not just about what's happening around us, they are about what's being decided within us. Days like this place us at a crossroads, not always an obvious one, not always dramatic, but a real one nonetheless. And whether we realize it or not, the choices we make in these moments quietly shape the direction of our tomorrow. Most people think destiny is decided by big events, but more often it's decided by small decisions made under pressure. What you choose to believe when fear is loud, what you choose to say when emotions are high, what you choose to do when clarity feels incomplete. Those choices don't stay in the moment, they travel with you. Every decision is a seed, and seeds that don't reveal their outcome immediately. You don't plant a seed today and harvest tomorrow. That's why people underestimate the power of decision. They think it's just one moment, not realizing that moments multiply, choices stack, directions form.
That's why I keep saying this day matters, because crossroads moments don't announce themselves. You often realize you were at one only after you've walked a certain direction long enough to see where it leads.
Some of you are being asked to decide what will lead you moving forward. Will it be faith or fear, wisdom or impulse, truth or convenience? Let it be clear, doing nothing is also a decision. Silence can be obedience, but avoidance is not. Ignoring the moment doesn't make it disappear. It just lets it decide without you. Decisions made in uncertainty are especially powerful because they reveal trust. Anyone can trust when outcomes are clear. Faith shows up when you choose without full visibility, when you say, I don't see everything yet, but I'm going to move with integrity anyway. That kind of decision sets a direction that God can bless. Some people wait too long to decide, hoping the moment will pass. But moments like this don't pass without leaving a mark. If you don't choose your direction intentionally, emotion will choose it for you. Fear will choose it for you. Pressure will choose it for you. And here's something we don't talk about enough. Decisions don't just affect outcomes, they shape identity. Repeated choices become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. And character determines destiny. So what feels like a small choice today is quietly shaping who you'll be becoming. This is why words matter so much right now. Words are decisions in verbal form. What you declare, what you agree with, what you repeat, it all points you in a direction. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, and that's not poetry, that's reality. Speak fear long enough, and you'll live in it. Speak faith consistently, and you'll walk in it. Your actions matter too. Who you listen to, what you give your attention to, where you invest your time and energy. Those are directional decisions. They may feel small, but they are steering your life. Let me say this plainly, you are not powerless in moments like this. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You may not control everything happening around you, but you do control how you respond, and your response is more powerful than the event itself. Some of you are standing at a quiet fork in the road. One path leads to peace, stability, and growth. The other leads to constant anxiety, reaction, and confusion. The paths don't look very different at first, but over time, the distance between them becomes undeniable. That's why wisdom doesn't rush decisions. It weighs them, it prays through them, it considers long-term impact, not just short-term relief. Fear wants immediate comfort. Wisdom wants lasting direction. You may be tempted to say something just to feel better, to act just to feel in control, to align with something just to feel secure. But temporary relief can cost long-term peace. And hear this car. Equally, God honors direction more than perfection. He's not asking you to get everything right. He's asking you to move in the right direction. A heart that chooses obedience, even imperfectly, will always find grace along the way. Some of you need to make a quiet decision today that no one will applaud. A decision to stop reacting. A decision to trust. A decision to guard your heart. A decision to wait. A decision to obey when it would be easier to blend in. Those are the decisions that shape strong futures. Don't underestimate the power of choosing well in a tense moment. Heaven notices. Direction shifts. Peace follows. And let me say this with love. The future you're praying for is often on the other side of a decision you're postponing. God is not withholding direction. He's waiting for alignment. So choose carefully today. Choose faith over fear. Choose wisdom over impulse. Choose obedience over convenience. Choose peace over panic. Because the direction you choose now will determine the life you walk into next. And finally, let me bring all of this together, because everything we've talked about leads to this one truth. Readiness is the difference between being shaken and standing strong. Unusual days don't destroy prepared people, they reveal them. When something unexpected happens, the people who have been preparing don't panic because their strength isn't coming from the moment. It's coming from what they built long before the moment arrived. Life will always have unordinary days. That's not the exception. That's the pattern. What changes is how people respond to them. Some are shocked every time pressure shows up. Others are steady even when things feel uncertain. The difference isn't luck, it's readiness. Readiness is not about knowing everything that will happen. It's about being anchored no matter what happens. It's about having a foundation so deep that even when the surface shakes, your footing stays firm. Prepared people may feel the pressure, but they are not controlled by it. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing comfort with readiness. Just because life has been calm doesn't mean you're prepared. Calm seasons are not just for enjoying, they're for building, they're for strengthening disciplines, deepening faith, and sharpening discernment. If you only build when storms come, you're already late. Some people say, I didn't expect this. But readiness expects the unexpected. Not with fear, but with wisdom. It understands that faith is not proven when everything is predictable. It's proven when it's tested. Prepared people are not perfect people. They still feel emotions. They still face questions. They still experience uncertainty. But they don't collapse under pressure. They don't lose their identity when the environment changes. They don't abandon their values when it gets uncomfortable. That's because readiness is internal before it's external. It starts in the heart. A heart that is anchored in truth doesn't drift easily. A mind that is disciplined doesn't panic quickly. A spirit that is prayerful doesn't react carelessly. Readiness also produces resilience. When something goes wrong, prepared people recover faster. They don't stay down, they don't spiral, they adjust and keep moving forward. Strength doesn't mean nothing shakes you, it means shaking doesn't break you. Let me say this clearly, God is not looking for people who never face storms. He's looking for people who can stand in them. And standing doesn't happen by accident, it happens by preparation. Some of you are realizing now that the reason certain moments hit you so hard in the past is because you weren't ready. And that's not to bring guilt, it's to bring growth. Every unprepared moment is a lesson, not a life sentence. You can build now, you can strengthen now, you can anchor yourself now. Readiness looks like consistency when no one is watching. It looks like prayer when it's not urgent. It looks like discipline when it's inconvenient. It looks like obedience when it would be easier to compromise. Those choices may not feel powerful in the moment, but they build unshakable strength over time. And here's the good news. Readiness is available to everyone. You don't need a special calling. You don't need a platform. You don't need perfection. You need willingness. Willingness to build. Willingness to listen. Willingness to adjust. When you're ready, you don't fear change. You navigate it. You don't dread challenges. You face them with clarity. You don't crumble under pressure. You rise with purpose. This is why I've been urging you throughout this message to stay alert, to recognize quiet shifts, to examine your preparation, to choose wisdom over fear, and to make intentional decisions. All of that leads a prepared life is a powerful life. Unordinary days will come, that's guaranteed, but whether they shake you or strengthen you depends on what you've been building. So don't wait for the next crisis to get serious about your faith. Don't wait for pressure to develop discipline. Don't wait for uncertainty to seek clarity. Build now, anchor now, prepare now, because when you live ready, nothing catches you off guard. It only reveals how strong you've become.